I'm musical. Esteemed guests and colleagues, it gives me a great pleasure to give you a very warm welcome on behalf of my school, Gaziantep College Foundation Schools, and say how grateful we are to those of you who've accepted our invitation to attend to this conference. Just a quick information about myself. Maybe some of you remember me from the previous year. My name is Tuğçe Özpamukçu, and I'm a literature and English teacher, and I'm teaching these lessons to a great bunch of high school kids at the school. Today marks our 14th ELT conference, and we're very proud to be able to host it at Tuğcan Hotel with all of you. And now, I'd like to invite our high school's principal, Mrs. Mehtap Özdemir, to the stage to deliver her opening speech.
Sayın Genel Müdür Yardımcım, değerli konuklar, sevgili İngilizce öğretmenlerimiz, Gaziantep Kolej Vakfı Özel Okulları olarak sizleri burada ağırlamaktan büyük memnuniyet duyuyoruz. Hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Gaziantep Kolej Vakfı olarak bu yıl 14.sünü düzenlediğimiz ELT Konferansı'nda büyük gurur duyuyoruz. Her yıl katılım ve ilgi giderek artmaktadır konferansımıza. 2015 yılından itibaren okulumuzda çeşitli gelişmelerle bu tür konferanslara destekliyor ve geliştirmeyi düşünüyoruz. Okuldaki amaçlarımızdan bir tanesi en az ana dili kadar bir yabancı dili konuşabilen öğrenciler yetiştirmektir. Bu seneki misyonumuzda da yer almıştır. Umarım bugün bu konferans ve seminer hepiniz için verimli geçer ve güzel şeyler elde ederiz. Bu konferansı düzenleyen Yabancı Diller Direktörümüz Cristina Gültekin'e, tüm İngilizce öğretmenlerimize ve emeği geçen herkese Kolej Vakfı Özel Okulları olarak teşekkür ederim. For the foreigners, I'd like to say welcome to our ELT conference. This year we are organizing 14th ELT conference on behalf of Gaziantep Foundation College. I'm speaking on behalf of Gaziantep Foundation College Directorate. Today, I hope this conference will be very useful for English teachers. We are proud of organizing that kind of events together. I'd like to say thank you, our foreign teachers and the head of our English department, Cristina Gültekin, to host that event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Özdemir, for your encouraging speech. Without further delay, I'd especially like to invite one of the organizers of our event, Mrs. Cristina Gültekin, to the stage. But I've got a very short speech about her. I know that she doesn't like to be praised a lot, although she's the spark beneath the fire. And I know one thing for sure, that all of the GKV foreign languages teachers feel very privileged to have such a great, successful, and precious lady as our coordinator. We love you, Cristina. Her imagination and endless efforts over the months have resulted in this unique ELT conference. So, let's welcome our Director of Foreign Languages, Mrs. Cristina Gültekin, to the stage to deliver her speech.
Oh my God, after such an introduction, what should I say? You raised the standards, and I just wanted to be, you know, average. Dear distinguished administrators, guests, and colleagues, I feel honored to welcome you all to our 14th ELT conference, which is entitled Exploring Trends in Teaching English. It's a tradition already to organize such events yearly in order to help the local community to develop. This year we have colleagues from all the region, including academia, K-12s, and ELT senior students. Where are you, students? Please raise your hands. Wait. All right, good. Good. A big thank you to all of you who found the time again to come on a Saturday morning, leaving your families aside. Last year, we tackled the topic effective teaching practices. And this year, we think that the theme of exploring trends in teaching English is the buzzword? Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'm sure we'll find some refreshing ideas today. This year, we are happy to present a slightly different format that is, besides the wonderful plenaries, by the way, the plenary speakers are here already, we also have poster presentations on action and exploratory action research. Our colleagues have been working hard for a few months to prepare them, and I'm proud to announce that 4 of them will be presented later on today, and we do have a special group, our IB students, and you can see the poster is at the back. I'm sure that they will give information starting for 2 o'clock. I won't keep you long, as I'm sure you are impatiently waiting for Nick Bilbrough. Wave at us, all right. Paul Seligson, yeah, to deliver their plenaries and the workshops. Nick is already here. Nick, can you wave to the people? Yeah, all right. Cool. And then Kostas Pexos. A very big thank you to Cambridge University Press, Dunia, Oxford University Press, Globed, Education Unlimited Services in Richmond, who helped us to make this event happen. As Stephen Hawking said, that in order to create something you need what? You need a matter, and we have the matter here. We need a space, we do have the space, and we need the energy to make it happen. Can you clap your hands and see our energy? All right. I think we're ready. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Mrs. Gültekin, for your speech. So, let's start our conference with our first plenary. Nick Bilbrough speaks regularly at conferences worldwide on the role of drama and storytelling techniques in second language learning. He is the author of 2 resource books in the Cambridge Handbooks for Language Teacher series, Dialogue Activities and Memory Activities for Language Learning, as well as Stories Alive, a free resource book of story-based activities for young learners, published by the British Council Palestine. Most of his time and energy is now devoted to the registered charity established, the Hands Up, providing learning opportunities through online storytelling and drama to disadvantaged children in Palestine and Jordan. Today, he will be reflecting on his experiences of language learning through drama from the perspective of both the learner and the teachers. He'll also explore how simple plays are being used with children in refugee camps in Gaza as a tool for empowerment and as a way to bring their English to life. I'm sure that all of you are waiting for my speech to come to an end and listen to what this marvelous, inspiring teacher trainer is going to say. Thinking that he's got lots of fans in this room, let's give him a big applause and shake the room.
Thank you for that beautiful welcome. That's one of the nicest welcomes I've ever had, I think. Is there a handheld mic? Okay, great. Now I'm going to start. Brilliant. Yeah, okay, great. Now, I'm a man, and I'm not very good at doing 2 things at once. So bear with me, please. But while I'm setting up the slides, I also need to send an email to somebody in Gaza. And so just bear with me. I'm going to try and talk while I send an email. It's not an easy thing for me to do. where are we now? Here we go. Now, at the end of this session, I'm hoping that we will be able to connect to a group of children in Gaza and that they will be able to perform a play to us through the internet, a 5-minute play. So, in order for them to do that, I need to just invite them through this. Let's just check that email is gone. It's gone. Okay, great. Brilliant. It works. Okay, so the Hands Up Project is a charity that I founded about 5 years ago now. And it's called the Hands Up Project, not in the sense of hands up, I surrender, I give up. It's hands up in the sense of this kind of hands up. You know that kind of hands up that you get with children? Anyone who works with children, children who want to put themselves forward, who want to volunteer, who want to say, I have a voice and I want you to hear my voice. So this is, for me, as a teacher, I mean, I'm still a teacher, I'm a teacher trainer, I'm an author, but I'm still a teacher. And this feeling that we get as teachers when our children say, pick me, this is what keeps me going as a teacher. This is what helps me to get up on a Monday morning early when I'm tired. This is what makes me feel motivated and keeps me loving this job. So one of the things we do in the Hands Up Project is we connect children, mostly in Gaza, to a team of volunteers around the world, online, and we do storytelling, and we do drama activities, and language games, all through the internet. And we also connect children in Gaza to children in other places around the world. And if anyone is interested in linking the kids that you teach to some children in Gaza, please let me know, email me, and we'll try and arrange it. We already have some volunteers in Turkey who are connecting to Palestine regularly. Now, so one of the things we're doing quite a lot now is we are connecting to, we're encouraging children to make plays and perform plays through the internet. So I'm going to begin by showing you a very short play. This play is called The Screen. This play has been performed live at conferences at a conference in London at Westminster University, and it's also been performed live in Santiago in Chile for about 300 English teachers through the internet. And it's performed by a group of 3 14-year-old girls in a refugee camp in southern Gaza. It's called The Screen. Now, it begins in darkness. So it isn't because there's a problem, it just begins in darkness. So there's a little while. I'm just going to play this to you.
I don't know which way to go. There is no way out. I'm lost. But wait, there is something here. I can see something in front of us. We can't go any further. We are stuck. There is a screen right in front of us. But why? Why? Wait. I can see through the screen. I can see people on the other side. Me too. I can hear voices. Men, women, children. Who is it? Who are they? There is somebody there. They are watching us. Listen to everything that we say. I don't like it here. We can't trust them. But wait, maybe they can help us. Hello? Can you hear us? Can you see us? Hello? Are you there? We won't let you hurt us. We won't let you take away our home. It's ours. We'll never let you do that. Wait, we have something for you. Look, this was made here. It's for you. So take it, please. It's no good. They can't see us. They can't hear us. They're not looking. They're not listening. They don't care. We are imagining it. There is nobody there. No one at all. It's all in our mind. We are alone. It's just us.
This idea of making a play, performing a play to talk about an issue, to raise awareness about an issue, is not a new idea. And those of you who know Hamlet will remember these lines or know these lines. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. So Hamlet put on a play in order to, and he wanted his uncle to watch the play. He wanted to see whether his uncle was guilty of the murder of his father. So he was using a play to raise an issue, to make somebody think about something. And of course we're doing that with the children that we work with and the young people that we work with in Palestine. I'm going to just skip forward a little bit. Now, this, around the same time that Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, or a little bit before, there was another writer living in Britain who was also writing dialogue to raise awareness about an issue. And this is a French writer called Jacques Bellot. And he wrote a book in 1586 called Familiar Dialogues. And it's maybe one of the first English course books that was published in the UK. It wasn't published by Cambridge University Press. I'm not sure who published it. But it's a book that contains lots of general, everyday dialogues that might happen in day-to-day life. And it was used to teach English to refugees who were coming to Britain. And it's a fascinating book because it has, on the left-hand side, you can see the dialogue. In the middle, you've got a French translation, and on the right, you've got a pronunciation guide, which tells you how to say the lines if you're a French speaker. And I think this was published in 1586, but what a fantastic resource for teaching language to refugees. Teaching them the language that's everyday language, things that people say, and helping them by giving them a translation and a pronunciation guide. What more could you want in a course book? So we're going to play around with this a little bit. Now, does anybody in the room speak 16th century English? Nobody speaks 16th century English? Okay, so we're all, let's say we're all learners of 16th century English then. We're learners of this language. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a dialogue from this course book, and we'll be language learners of 16th century English. Now the dialogue that I'm going to give you is in a butcher's shop. And when we're doing drama with kids, or even when we're just doing a dialogue in the course book, I don't know if you find this, but sometimes I find it can be very boring. Students just read out the dialogue. What's your name? My name's Tony. Where are you from? I'm from Turkey. You know, there's no engagement with it. And I think one way in which we can put some engagement into the dialogue is through our bodies. This is the beautiful thing about drama, that we can engage the whole body in the experience. So I'd like you to do something that's going to warm us up a little bit as well. Can you work with a partner? And can you decide, actually, let's do it in groups of, small groups, maybe 3s or something. Groups of 3 or 4. Can you decide one of you is a butcher? One of you is a butcher. One of you is a customer. Okay? And the other 2 are going to watch and help you. Alright? Now, what you're going to do, you're going to improvise a scene between the 2 characters. So you're going to have a conversation between the butcher and the customer. But, very important, you can't speak. You can't speak Turkish, you can't speak English, you can't speak Chinese, you can't speak any language. You've got to just do it through gestures. Alright? So can I ask everyone to stand up? And try the conversation. And those who are watching, afterwards, try and interpret what you saw. Go. Okay, fantastic. I wish I was filming this, because it looks really good. Okay, brilliant. Brilliant. Have a seat again. Now, the people who are watching, could you please interpret what you saw? Tell the people who are acting what you think they were talking about. Okay. Now, okay, so we're going to try now to add some language. We're going to try and add some language. So here is the actual dialogue from the book that was written in 1586 to teach English to refugees coming to Britain. Let's just, as you can see, the language is a little bit different from Headway Intermediate. What do you buy? That's quite clear what that means. Show me a couple of good and fat rabbits. The poulterer says, here be then that be very good and fat. Here they are. The nice and fat ones. They be very stale. What does that mean? They're very old. They're old. They're out of date. They're past their sell-by date. The poulterer says, truly they be very new. No, they're fresh. Ralph says, how sell you them? How much? How much are they? 10 pence a couple. It is too much, you are too dear. They be not worth so much, they be worth but a groat. So, it's too expensive, they're not worth that much, they're only worth a groat. I'm not sure what a groat is, but I don't think it's very much money. Okay, so, can I ask you to stand up again? And can you now try the dialogue using those lines, but keep all the physicality, keep all the gestures, keep all the physicality in there. Make it as physical as you can. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Now, we don't have much time, and there are lots of other things I'd like to do. But I mean, we could develop this. This could be that the students, if the students are working with a dialogue, they put it in their bodies first of all. They practice it through physicality. Then they start working with the language, and then they start learning it. Gradually they'll start learning it. And they'll learn it more easily if they put it in their bodies. And of course, in a way, this is like the process that you're going through now is like the process that your students go through, because they want to say where you go. But we want them to say, where are you going? And we want, you know, they say, we go my grandmother's house yesterday. We want them to say, We went to my grandmother's house yesterday. So there's a kind of gap, a distance between what students say and what we want them to say. And so this can happen when we're working with dialogues and with scripts. Now, the brilliant theatre in education, drama and education specialist, Dorothy Hefker, she said this: the difference between theatre and classroom drama is that in theatre, everything is contrived so that the audience get the kicks. But in the classroom, the participants get the kicks. So when we use drama with students, we're doing it so that they get the benefit. They see it as a learning activity. They learn English through doing drama activities. So what kind of kicks may second language learners get from rehearsing and performing in a play? And I just want to say something. Sometimes people think drama, that's just for high-level students. Or drama, that's just for the extroverts. I would say that I am a almost complete beginner in Arabic. But I've acted in a play in Arabic. A very simple play. I would also say that I am not in any way an extrovert. In fact, I'm probably the shyest person that I know. But I love drama, because drama gives me something. And often the shyest students in our class will be the people who respond the best to drama. So, what kind of kicks may second language learners get from rehearsing and performing their play? Well, one obvious thing is that if we work with a script, we're connecting words and chunks and grammatical structures through a context. We have a very clear context in which those words are presented. And we know from studies of memory that words and structures are much better remembered if they're in a clear context. They're linked thematically. Nice thing about working with a script or with a play is that it provides the advantages of both spoken and written language. So when our students want to learn to speak, but it's really hard to notice the features of spoken language, because as soon as somebody speaks, it's gone. As soon as you open your mouth, it's gone. Where's it gone? It's disappeared. When we have spoken language written down, students can stop, they can notice, auxiliary verb. Or, they can notice the way words are spelt. There's a slowing down of the experience, and therefore there may be more learning happening. Now, I'd like to give you an example of this. This is a group of girls in an UNRWA school in Gaza, and they're going to perform a story called Joha and the Meat. You may know this story. A Joha story is popular in Turkey, although Nasruddin is popular. Probably it's the same story. You probably know this story, but as a Nasruddin story. Oops.
Once upon a time, Joha was so happy. He had lots of money in his pocket. He was so hungry, so he went to the market to buy some meat.
Hi there. Good morning. How can I help you?
I want some nice meat. Can you give me that piece, please?
Okay. It's 8 kilos.
Thank you. Here's your money.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Dig, dig, dig. Hello?
So, you know, as you can see, they don't need a stage and lots of complicated props. It's just something that they've done in the class in front of the other learners, and they've recorded it in a very simple way. Now if we look at the, by the way, this text is from a book called Stories Alive, which I wrote for British Council Palestine. It's free to download that book. So if you go to that link there, you can download the book, and it's got lots of different story-based activities in it. So if you look at that as a context in which we might present some language, you'll see that there are lots of words, lots of structures, lots of chunks of language that are related to the topic of food, buying and cooking food. Feeling hungry, went to the market, how can I help you? I'd like some, all that kind of thing. And of course, that's also the same with the dialogue that you had. There are lots of chunks of language there which are from 16th century English. Here be then. That's not a chunk of language that we use these days, but maybe in 16th century English it was very common. Here be then. Actually, where I live in England, some people still talk like that. Good. So, another thing about working with a script is that we link language with physicality. There was a married couple called Noyce and Noyce who looked at how people learn the lines of plays. How do they learn, how do actors learn the lines of the plays that they're going to perform? All over the world. How do they do it? Usually, they physicalize the lines. They don't just sit there and read them to themselves. They start linking the lines to a gesture or to a movement. And that helps them to remember the lines. And also, when we're learning a play, when we're getting the students to practice a play, they're getting very meaningful pronunciation practice. Pronunciation is very, I think pronunciation is very hard to teach, because a lot of the time it doesn't matter in a way. It only matters, I mean, the important thing about doing a play is when you need to pronounce things correctly and with the right emotions, because the audience needs to understand and interpret what you're doing. So pronunciation becomes very meaningful. Now, wow, 1990. This is me in 1990. Quite a long time ago. You can see my hair was a little bit longer then, and my hair was a little bit darker. I didn't have any grey hair in those days. But I took part in a play in Denmark, which happened in a swimming pool, and the play happened in Danish. So I had to act in Danish. I'm just going to show you a little bit of the beginning of that play.
Hver dag er de plejer at sige, fri mig fra magten og æren. Her er kronen. Hun er min brud. Jeg sejler væk for at finde ud.
Danish speakers in the audience? I'm glad there are no Danish speakers in the audience, because you won't be able to know how bad my Danish is and how bad my accent is. Now, something you would notice from that is that I have a very strong accent when I'm speaking Danish, very strong English accent, and I'm not actually that good at acting. I mean, it's not something, I wouldn't say that it's a skill that I have. On the other hand, it's a fantastic way for me to learn Danish, and that was an incredibly powerful learning experience for me. That was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, 1990. What year is it now? How many years ago is that? 30 years ago. But I can still remember the lines. I can still remember, nej! Det ikke retfærdigt, og frem for alt, slet ikke færdigt. Jeg vil over. Jeg vil slås. Jeg vil kæmpe som en tiger og frelse det lykkelige land. I båden, kom hjælp mig, piger. That's in my head. I'm really glad you don't speak Danish, because I could just keep saying anything. But the point is, I think when we do drama with our kids, when we get our students to do plays, we're giving them a very powerful memory experience, an experience that they'll remember for a long time. And in order to get to that stage where we perform it, we need to do loads of practice, of course. Now, we know that we have to practice language a lot in order to internalise it. We need to do masses of purposeful language practice as well. But a lot of the language practice we do, students don't see it as purposeful. Filling in a gap fill exercise, doing drills, repeating things over and over again. It can be not that motivating for learners. But if they're learning the lines of a play that they know they're going to perform, it becomes very meaningful for them. The other thing about that is the practice can become internal. People who talk to themselves in the language they're learning do very well, generally. People who hold language in their head and turn it around do very well. In order to learn the lines of a play, we have to do that, don't we? We have to say them to ourselves, check that we've learned them, check that we've remembered them. Say them to ourselves in the shower, on the bus, when we're walking to work, walking to school. So there's a lot of practice, and very meaningful. That practice can be very meaningful and very useful. And also, when we do a play, we have to perform it. And sometimes that push that we get from standing up in front of people can be the push that's necessary in order for learning to happen. Now, I love pair work and I love group work, and they're really fantastic for creating a safe environment and for maximising the use of language in a short time by students. But I believe very strongly that we also need to push things a little bit. And so even if students are practicing a dialogue in pairs or in groups, I think it's great if at some point we get them to come up and perform it. Because maybe that's the moment when they take things to another level, take it to the next level. In fact, I mean, I could have done that with you. It would have been nice if I'd done that with you, actually, got you to perform the butcher conversation. Now, I think that learning and performing a play is a very holistic approach to language learning. It combines very controlled language use practicing the lines, practicing the pronunciation, trying to get it right. But at the same time, it involves lots of free language use. If students are working on a play and discussing between themselves how are they going to perform it, if they're talking to the teacher about how they're going to perform it, who's going to play which role, there's lots of free language use as well which happens. And this can be very, very useful. So let's have a look at some boys. Now, a lot of the work that we do with kids in Palestine is with girls, and that's probably because maybe everywhere in the world, girls tend to be more interested in drama than boys. Is that true in Turkey?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I don't think I've been anywhere where that's not the case. But we're encouraging boys to do drama as well, as much as possible. So here's a nice play. You'll know this story. This is called The Lion and the Mouse. It's an Aesop's fable. And it's a group of boys in southern Gaza performing this play.
Usually we become friends with people who are similar to us. But we can also be friends with people who are very different. In this story, a lion and a mouse become friends. Can you believe that? No, I can't be friends with a mouse. No, I can't be friends with a lion. Stop arguing. Let us tell the story. Once upon a time, there was a lion who lived in the middle of the jungle. Every day, he ate lots and lots of meat. He needed to eat a lot because he was big. He was strong. And he was big. But today he was tired. Eating was very hard work.
I mean, those boys, it's quite interesting talking to the teacher about how they made that play, because I wanted to know how much of the time, how much class time they spent on that. Because this is always an issue, isn't it? I mean, I go all over the world and people say, oh, well, drama's great, or this activity's great, but we don't have time because we have to get through the curriculum, we have to do the X, Y, and Z. Samir, the teacher who worked with that play with the students, he said, actually, they spent hardly any class time on it. So all he did was, told them the story, gave them the script, gave them characters, decided who was going to play which character. They went away and learnt it, and then they practiced it a little bit in class. So they performed it. Once they'd learnt the lines, they performed it. He might give them some feedback, and then they tried it again. So rather than, it didn't mean they had to spend a lot of the time in the class on it. Most of the work happened outside of class. And it's hard to find motivating things for students to do as homework, but this is one thing that I think can be very, very motivating. In fact, Samir said he didn't even need to tell them to learn the lines. They just learned them. And I mean, I don't know, that's a kind of cultural thing. I mean, in Palestine, there is a very strong tradition of learning things by heart. I don't know if that's true in Turkey too, but it's a great tool as well to be able to learn things by heart. Okay, now I'm going to be just thinking that, I'm hoping that they're going to be joining. So I'm just going to skip forward a little bit. Let me just see if they're there. They're not there yet. Okay. So one of the things we do in the Hands Up project is we run a playwriting competition for Palestinian children. So we asked them to make a play in English, and the play needs to be 5 minutes long, maximum 5 minutes long, with a maximum of 5 actors, and they need to send us the script, and they need to send us a video of them performing the play. In the 2017 competition, we had 88 entries from all over Palestine. Last year, at the end of 2018, we had 180 entries from all over Palestine. And we suddenly had to find a way of judging all of these plays, because it's not easy to assess videos and scripts. We've got a big team of language teachers and authors and drama specialists around the world to assess these plays. And it's an amazing experience for these kids to do this. I mean, I think it's a wonderful experience for their English, to develop their English, but it's also a great experience for giving them a voice in the world and helping them to become authors. So the plays that they created are available on the YouTube channel, on our Hands Up Project YouTube channel. You can see lots of the plays. And we also have a book. Last year's plays, we published a book which has 30 of the plays in it. And the plays, so you've got the scripts in there, and they're really nice. Some of them are very funny. There's one play called My Mother-in-Law is a Troublemaker, which is one of my personal favourites. And the plays have a video QR code, so you can link to the students in Palestine seeing the play, performing the play. And if you are interested in performing these with your students, I mean, one thing that's happening a lot now is that people around the world are performing these plays, making videos of them, and the kids in Palestine are seeing the videos of the plays made by other children. So we had a nice thing with some young people in Peru, where they performed some of the plays from this book, and the kids, and they sent them to the children in Palestine. Anybody would like to buy a copy of that book, we're basically, all the proceeds will go to helping young people in Gaza perform plays. And I'm selling, I've brought quite a lot of copies with me. I'm going to sell it for 50 lira, which is not much more than we paid to make the books. So if anyone wants to buy a copy, come and see me afterwards. I think I'll also put some in the raffle at the end. So here's an extract of a play that was written by a group of boys in I can't remember where it is in Gaza, but in a school in Gaza, in an UNRWA school in Gaza. There's the book. And we asked Scott Thornbury, who's a trustee of the Hands Up Project, to write an introduction. And I think this really is very important, what he's written now. I'm just going to read it out. More importantly still, drama is expressive. It invests an imagined world with the thoughts, experiences, feelings, fears, and hopes of its creators. In the context of Palestine, this is an incredibly important function. It provides a means of thinking the unthinkable, of saying the unsayable, of dreaming the undreamable. And it is transformative. It empowers its creators by enhancing their English skills and hence giving them a powerful voice in the wider world. But also by construing their lives as narratives that can be performed and shared, drama eloquently affirms their identity as Palestinians and as global citizens. So there's another thing there about doing a play, which goes beyond language. And I can feel it in the plays that I've done in other languages. that when you perform in a play, you become part of a community of practice. You become very close to those people. I did a play with a group of young people in Birmingham about 10 years ago. And a lot of those people were refugees in Britain, and they were people who were feeling not at home, not very much at home. Doing a play gave them a very strong sense of confidence and belonging. And you become very close to people that you do a play with. You connect to them, and that's certainly something we're hearing a lot from people in Palestine who've acted in plays. They say, we didn't know each other before, but once we've done a play, we really know. We've become very friends, we've become very good friends with these people. Now, come on Gaza, you need to join us now. So here are a couple of things you could do if you're interested in getting involved in the Hands Up project. You could become an online storyteller, and you could connect to a group of kids in Palestine once a week for an hour and do stories and drama activities through Zoom. You could buy the book and practice it with your students. On the 6th of April, if anybody's going to the GKV conference in London, the next day we're having our conference in Preston, and the winners of this year's competition will be coming to the UK to perform their play live. Okay, now I'm just going to check finally to see whether they're there. No, that's not one. I don't think they're going to join us. Perhaps they've got internet connection problems. Okay, so what I'm going to do instead, how long have I got? 7 minutes, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to show you a play from last year. This was a play that was made by students in Beit Hanun, in northern Gaza. It's a play called Live Your Life, and this play came third in the competition last year.
On Easy, dear. Everything will be alright. Calm down.
Come here, my son. Your daughters are Grace. Every girl has her own dream, and she enjoys her life as them. Don't push them very soon or very hard. We are in 2017. We can't push years. Take things slowly. And you, grandmother, come here. Don't let anyone destroy your dream future. Live life happily and normally.
This is our life. We want to enjoy it. Please, don't embrace us. We love your parents.
Come here.
With the teacher on Facebook, and she says that she hasn't received the link. So I'm just going to try. If I can just have a couple of minutes, it would be really nice if we can just link. See all my So I don't know if any of you use Zoom, but it's very similar to Skype, but it works through sending a link when people click on it. And the reason we use it in Gaza is because it works much better than Skype in contexts where the internet is weak, and where there are problems with electricity. Right, she's seen it. Okay, there's one final thing we can try. They're actually performing in a live group in Gaza where the internet is stronger. I'm just going to try and send the links. Morning. Brilliant. Fantastic. You made it. Okay. I'm not sure if I can turn this round so that you can see the audience, but can you all just make a lot of noise and just say hello?
Come in and say hello to everyone.
So I'm very... Okay, so shall we start straight away with the play?
Okay, we're going to start now. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Would you like to see the audience while I'm performing?
I've been through the audience and
Looks like I am in, but I didn't have
and open the gate so we can have freedom, food, water, knowledge, and medicine. We may have our right to live as others live. I will wait here till they open the gate. Okay, please start, Sajjan.
Hello, my name is Sajjan. I'm 2 years old. I'm Palestinian. I live in Gaza. I love the hands-on project because my favorite subject is English. English is very important for me and for my life. I can use it in my life. Thanks.
My name is Tali. I am 12 years old. I am at 6th grade. I love English because it's my favorite subject. I'm 12 years old. I like English very much because it's my favorite. I like hands-on project because it's important for me.
Hello, I am Abir Al-Haj. I am 11 years old. I am lived in Gaza City. My favorite hobby is singing and dance. My favorite subject is English, and I love the hands-on projects.
Hello, I'm Ricky Balbana.
I'm 10.
I'm
17.
Thank you very much, Lausanne, and thank you to all the girls. That was an amazing performance. Thank you. On Sunday in Gaza.
Okay, see you. Bye.
Okay, I'm sorry that we went over a little bit, but I hope that you feel that it was worth it. What an amazing group of kids. Okay, so that's the end of my talk. I think we're having a break now. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bilbrough, for that wonderful plenary, and we were all in love with those kids. They were amazing. Now, I'd like to invite our school's Vice General Manager, Mr. İsmet Tiryaki, to the stage to present a small gift that will remind Nick of us. this is the best moment. Let's have a coffee break, which is in the lobby. Looking forward to seeing all these smiling faces here again after 15 minutes. Moving to our second plenary, we have Mr. Paul Seligson. I can feel a bit of shaking for the second time today, as I am so excited to be on the same stage with the gurus of the ELT world. And let me give a brief bio data about Paul Seligson. He has been TOEFLing worldwide for 40 years and is well known for his active pragmatic training, an MA in TOEFL and self-assessor. His many ELT publications include English File, Oxford University Press, and for Richmond, helping students to speak awesome Kids' Web, Essential English 1 to 5, English ID, and Identities 1 and 2. He works freelance from his home in Brighton. And Turkey has long been one of his favorite places on earth, and this will be at least his 13th visit, but his first to Gaziantep. Today, he will list some of the activities which you feel are largely a waste of time, and of course suggest alternative pedagogical shortcuts to keep all students busier more of the time. Please welcome marvelous Mr. Paul Seligson to the stage to deliver his speech.
Marvelous, wow. Thank you very much. This is great. It's my first time in Gaziantep, and it's a thrill to see such a beautiful audience, and I mean beautiful. Most of you spent at least 2 or 3 hours getting ready for this morning, didn't you? Thank you very much to UES for bringing me from Brighton here specifically for you. Straight after this afternoon, I'm going straight back to England, so I hope you find this worthwhile. Okay? And thank you for arranging the British weather. So that's my question for you. To me, classroom minutes are precious. Our students don't have very long with us to learn English. And I wonder if you've ever thought about where they all go. So let's have a look at that sentence. So many of our activities seem to take too long. For example, checking answers. This afternoon, I have a workshop where I'll show you how to accelerate checking answers. Getting rich as a teacher seems to take forever. Okay? What I'd like you to do, or this one, a syllabus. I call syllabuses silly buses, because most of them were designed many years ago by an idealist. And I've been teaching for 40 years. And when I started, it was just grammar and vocabulary. And then we had functions and notions and video and loving and online and offline and inline and outline. And the syllabus just gets bigger and bigger. And that's why, how often do you cover a book or a syllabus? You know, teaching is sort of present simple, past simple, future simple, I'm simple, you're simple, text. And we do this crazy run thing, just running through the syllabus. You cannot teach fluency in a hurry. And that's the whole problem. What I'd like you to do, just finish that sentence, go back to the original sentence. What takes you so long in your different circumstances as a teacher? What takes forever with your classes? Just share with your beautiful neighbour. A long time. Just shout.
Getting married.
Checking homework. Sorry?
Getting married.
Getting married.
Yep.
That's another issue. Yeah, I've done it twice. I don't recommend it. Yeah. Anybody else? Other things?
Writing.
Sorry, I really can't hear you.
Writing.
Writing.
Yes.
Yeah, getting students to write anything takes a long time. Yeah. Okay. Each of us is a very different teacher. Let's look at what I've found. These are the ones I'm going to focus on today. I've been observing teachers globally for 30 years. I've seen nearly 1,000 teachers teach in 4 continents. And what I've been doing for the last 5 years is just sort of looking at my watch every time nothing seems to be happening. Long silences, waiting for one student to come to the class and write the answer on the board while the rest of the class sleep. Or playing hot potato. I hate hot potato. My name is Paul. Sorry? And then they drop the ball, and wait. And you just get these long silences. What's happening? Linguistically, 0. So it seems to me we should try and find ways of making language practice more efficient. There's a question for you. And what I'm going to do is seed the question. Just have a think about it. In your classes, what's your priority? Each individual or the group? And I'll give you a little time to think about that. We'll come back to it later in the session. Okay? So, how often do you spend 5 minutes taking the register or waiting for students to come to class and the teacher doesn't perform until the audience has all arrived? It strikes me as terribly sad because tick, tick, tick, tick, tick, tick, the minutes are passing. For example, just have a little tongue twister on the board. Here are some of my favourites. Try that one quickly. Any of those? Try those. This one is impossible. Take photos. Nick and I are a big contrast. I go very, very quickly to try to give you lots of ideas. Take all the photos you wish, okay? But I think it's difficult to say never about teaching, but I would suggest never wait for a long time at the beginning without giving them something. At least put something on the board or something on the walls of the classroom. This type of thing. It's amazing how many schools you visit and you walk in and it looks like a hospital. It's like white, white, white. Visually, there's nothing to look at. And I always think, who died? Why are we in this horrible white room waiting for language to suddenly materialize? Surely we should be using the walls. Some of you say, I can't use the walls because the director is precious about the paint or something like that. But or you say, I have to share with the maths teacher and the geography teacher, but then take the ceiling. Nobody wants the ceiling. Put English on the ceiling and have students look up and see English. But to give them nothing, the eye is much stronger than the ear. You process 10 times more information through your eyes than through your ears. So if you're teaching in a laboratory which is sterilized, you're missing an awful lot of language practice opportunity. This thing here, you see in many, many classrooms, private language schools around the world. In Turkey, I've never seen this. And that actually sort of links a little bit to some of the emotions from Nick's talk. You know, if you deny Turkish, I'll talk about this afternoon, I'm giving a workshop about classroom management. It's okay to say no Turkish, etc. But what about the weak students? You are denying their voice. They will never say anything unless they're allowed to whisper, at least together. And I'll talk about that this afternoon. But to deny 100% of Turkish means probably you're feeding the strong and you're praying for the rest. So we'll look at that this afternoon. What do you have on your classroom walls? This is a typical classroom wall. And the problem is, this list is actually terribly useless. It's a useless thing. Because how does it work? In practice, the students say, teacher, I have, wait. And the whole class waits while the teacher goes, I have eaten, teacher, eaten. Yeah. And it takes 2 or 3 minutes to establish an utterance. or when they look at it at the back, and the rest of the class, wait, tick, tick, tick. What a waste of time. As I'll show you this afternoon, fluency is far more important than accuracy, at least initially. But what does this focus on? Focuses on 100% accuracy and killing time. This is my daughter who's now teaching in Mexico. I'll show you a lot of connections to songs in my talk. I use songs all the time. Not whole songs, never, just one line, extracts, and you'll see some during this session. She asks her students, instead of that horrible shopping list, you know, that irregular verb list, I call it the shopping list from hell. 3 columns. Good luck. Put. Happy Christmas. What she's been doing, she gave each of her students a common past tense form. And she said, for homework, can you find a line from the song which connects to that? And on a big strip of paper, she put it on the classroom wall. And so the students, whenever they want to find them, they can find them in a song. Who chose the language? The students. Who knows the pronunciation? The students. So they can actually teach each other from this. Which would you prefer as a student? Something contextualized or an idealized shopping list? Do you see what I'm saying? And this on the wall will get your students singing. When the students mispronounce, for example, teacher, I have been to the USA, for example. Then the teacher says, think about the song. Lately I've been, been. And they can extract the pronunciation from the song. Okay, so that's the sort of thing, if you want your students to use classroom minutes efficiently, cover your walls with things which will motivate them to pronounce, to speak, to think, to sing. This is things which often happen when the teacher, ironically, is late for class. Ironically, if you think about it, often when you're late, you say to a friend, could you please go in and give some instructions to my students? I would suggest you should always do this. Always have something on the board at the beginning of the class to read. The teachers only do this when they can't be there. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think this sort of thing you can easily put at the beginning of the class. As soon as students arrive, they sit together and they get on with something. Maybe they'll speak Turkish, but at least the focus will be on English. And you should add productivity to your classroom time. Teaching is a very hygienic profession. We always clean the board at the end of our classes, normally because we're embarrassed about our blackboards. But actually, I used to have a language school in Brighton where I live. And I told teachers, never clean the board. Just leave it there. And then the next teachers, when the students come in, they can, oh, I know this, I remember that was difficult. What's this, teacher? You're arousing their curiosity. And I think it's a really, if you've got an English environment, not where you're changing subjects, it strikes me as a very good idea to leave it up, because you begin a dialogue across the school. Teachers start to talk about different ways to teach. And you'll find out who are the teachers who only write grammar on the board very quickly. It's a healthy thing to do, opening up the classroom organically. Which of these do you think, imagine you arrive in the classroom, which of those 3 expressions of the teacher's aim do you think is most student-friendly? Number 1, number 2, or number 3? Because many institutions insist the teacher writes a plan on the board at the beginning of the class. Tell your beautiful neighbour, which would you prefer as a language learner? Number 1, number 2, or number 3 as your introduction to the outline of the lesson. Just tell your neighbour which you prefer. Okay, and again I'll stop you there. Who prefers number 1? Who prefers number 2? Who prefers number 3? That's interesting. Number 3 to me is like a science class. There's no language at all, it's isolated examples. Number 2, I think, is too much information too quickly. Okay, you should be able to elicit this at the appropriate moment of the class. Beginning with this, it's kind of, it's not particularly friendly, is it? For this one, what happens is the students look at this, they go, Yeah? Of course, they're thinking between Turkish and English. Guess what? They always do. But at least what you're doing is helping the students to understand. And I think this is the best thing you can do at the beginning of a class. If you just look at some typical mistakes, put them on the board, corrected them, and then as a lead into the class. Yeah? These are all typical Turkish mistakes. And just have them on the board at the beginning of the class. Look at the text you're going to teach, whatever language is going to come along. Try to look at it, which is your greatest strength, from the perspective of a Turkish speaker, and then anticipate the mistakes which will come along. And rather than waiting until the students make the mistake, what I suggest you do is anticipate the mistake and say, don't do this or correct this at the beginning of the class. Pedagogically, all of our students are moving between languages. All of our students, whenever they're lost, will go back to Turkish. True or false? When do you translate as a language learner? Even young children do this, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 4. And I've watched them learn different languages. Whenever they're lost, they go back to the mother tongue. So even young children translate. Neurolinguistically, it's been proven that we always go back to the mother tongue whenever we're not sure. So when do you translate as a language learner? It's whenever you're not sure, which is all the time. True or false? Yeah. So, but I'm not suggesting you need to start speaking Turkish, not at all. But your strength is you are bilingual. You can put yourself in the student's shoes, and you can see the lesson from their perspective. I would be a useless teacher with your students in Turkey. Why? Because I don't speak Turkish. So I cannot anticipate. Let me show you another example. I think the best way to reduce mistakes with our classes is not to wait until they make the mistake, it's to try to anticipate at least some of them. So this sort of thing. You know your students are going to make those mistakes. Yeah? So pedagogically, you have 2 choices. You say nothing, and they fall into the trap. And then you run around the trap and you say, don't panic, students. I'm a highly paid teacher. I can save you by drilling you to death. Okay, that's one choice. Or choice 2, you say, okay guys, in this class, don't do that. Do this. Put it on the board at the beginning of the class. And everybody, even the weakest student, understands what's going on. And they can help each other throughout the class and move around the track. So it seems much, much more about pedagogy should be anticipative from the perspective of a Turkish speaker. At any level, you can imagine yourselves the types of problems which will come along. If you ignore them, they will fall into the trap. Okay? Here's another, this sort of thing with the song. You can do it with the song. I'm not going to play this song, but you know that song, We Are the Champions. You know the song. The students know it. If you just put it on the board at the beginning of the class and ask the students, could you correct that? And you know the types of mistakes they're going to make. And that's a nice lead into a class to revise the verb to be and articles, which are huge problems for our students, for example. What I'm suggesting is this: give consistent models of translation traps without using Turkish. It will save you hours. And it's completely democratic. Everybody's equal. Normally we teach the strong and the rest follow. When you begin like this, everybody has the opportunity to get the message immediately. Look at the advantages. When you're teaching, a lot of the teaching methodology we use globally comes from Anglophone countries, the States, Britain, Australia. In those countries, they have multinational classes, multilingual students. They cannot anticipate. So the method is fall into the trap, and then the teacher will correct and help, or try to elicit the correct forms to avoid the trap. But when you're coming with monolingual students, Turkish speakers, you need a different methodology. And I think for far too long in Turkey, I've been coming here for 25 years, we have been teaching with an imported methodology rather than a Turkish-friendly, Turkish-specific methodology. At any level. I'm not talking about 3 or 5 years old. Children can absorb the language like sponges. But once the text, the written form is established, it's almost impossible to avoid transfer. So rather than sort of push it away, I suggest you construct upon and around that. More advantages. Millions of advantages. And this is a quotation which changed my thinking from one of my gurus, Mario Valukri. English grammar, any foreign language, is always better understood once you've established the equivalent in your own language. To try to pretend that students are not looking for equivalents is a waste of time, because students always do. Do you agree? So what we need is to be much more realistic about monolingual teaching. All right, another way you can use Turkish is like this. Just give them a text like that. Could you correct 7 mistakes in that text? Just with your beautiful neighbour. I'll give you a clue. It's a song line which you probably know. Okay, we'll stop there and let's check.
It's been a long day without you, my friend, and I'll tell you all about it when I see you again.
And that's how I think you should be using music. Last year, that was the most viewed song on YouTube. All of those are typical transfer problems from Turkish. You know the students will go through this process. So why not begin? Where is the Turkish here? Where is the Turkish? It's in their head. Happy Christmas, it's there all the time. So rather than ignore this, you can construct classes in English. And the myth is, if you refer to Turkish, you have to speak Turkish. Well, I don't speak Turkish, but I'm referring to Turkish here. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not using one word of Turkish. I will still go to pedagogical heaven. Can you imagine pedagogical heaven? Full of English teachers who refuse to speak Turkish. Good luck with that one, yeah. Okay. So, I just added a 10th one because this is the one that really annoys me, but it's also something I did myself for 30 years. How often do you, just before class, has anybody got a warm-up? Give me a warm-up, give me a warm-up. And you go into class with some extra activity and it kills the lesson because you're so long with the warm-up, the actual pedagogical objective doesn't happen. And then as Nick said, we say, I don't have time. You don't have time because you did a stupid warm-up. Forget the warm-up, just how are you, class? How are you, okay? Shall we go quickly or slowly? How are you feeling? Tell your neighbour. Let's go. And just try to get into the meat of the class because, as I'll say this afternoon, the most important thing probably in the class is motivation and practice. And it won't come from too many warm-ups. Number 2, I probably won't get through all 10, but if I don't finish, I'll finish with you this afternoon. Shuffling the students. Okay? How often do you say to students, could you move? And they say, oh, teacher. Really? I like this chair. It's the same shape as my bottom. I like this chair. This is my, I don't like her, you know. They just move. Does this happen to you? It happens every time. Whose fault is it if they don't move? Only we can change something. If they don't move, you have to look in the mirror and blame yourself. Because you've let them get used to not moving. Okay? Well, and then Nick mentioned group work. Here, just take a photo. I'm not going to talk about this. There are many ways you can group students. I loved what Nick did. I love performance. I love group work. But most of the time, the best thing you can do is that. Because no time is wasted. Every time, unless it's a big activity, a game, a play, something significant, it is not worth putting students into groups. Because it takes 3 minutes. And I'll show you what I do if I'm going to move my students. I always give them something linguistic to do, rather than just move in silence and start organising themselves in Turkish. That's what I do in my school. All the schools I've worked in about, well, I don't know how many schools. But I always put this on the wall. And if you can agree within your institution that that's a rule, the problem disappears. We know it's a problem moving students, teacher, please. We know the problem. It's up to us to find a solution. If you agree this within your institution, it never is a problem because the students get, it's another rule. We just have to move every class. If you don't insist on this, or one teacher in your school doesn't do this, game over. You go back to the problem. Okay? If you're going to make them move, give them something to say along the way. For example, before they move, okay, here's some language you can use while you're moving. Otherwise, you get 3 or 4 minutes of nothing. Whilst the students are moving the furniture, complete waste of time. If you think students only have 2 or 3 40 or 50-minute classes, it's quite a lot of time. So I'm not anti-group work, but it's up to us to make it linguistically worthwhile. There's something to repeat, something to chant, a tongue twister, a song line to sing as they move. Perhaps a poem like this. This is my student's favourite poem. Try this. God made bees, bees make honey. We do all the work and teachers get the money. And if you get students, it's a wonderful book. It's the best title I've ever seen for a book. Poem to freak out your teacher. You can find that on Amazon. It's about £1. But getting students to chant as they move keeps the linguistic purpose alive. And it's much, much more fun than just listening to the furniture move around. Manage the material. Don't let the material manage you. How often do you wait until Mr. or Mrs. Slow finishes the exercise? All the time. There's so much. If you just put a clock from the time the first student and the last students complete something, and try to work out how can I best fill that time. I'll give you some suggestions in a second. If you're just ignoring that, or if you're trying to give everybody a private class, private class, private class, private class, what are the rest of the class doing whilst you speak to individuals? It seems to me that's a real fundamental in language teaching. Try to keep everybody busy linguistically as best you can. I'll talk about time limits are incredibly important. How often do students say, I finished teacher, I haven't finished teacher. What's the solution? Okay, just 2 minutes. 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Most of us as a profession, we sort of spray 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes. We spray 2 minutes around the room like perfume. The students do, well, she said 2 minutes, it's fine, I know, at least it's fine. Nobody believes your 2 minutes, yeah? Unless you actually make it 2 minutes. It's up to us. That's a couple more minutes, just a few more minutes. Yeah. Just if you actually sort of stand back and are able to watch what's happening, often there's a lot of time wasting going on. It's not your fault, it's classroom management. And that's our job. To me, the key language teaching skill, is classroom management. It always was, and I think it always will be, at least whilst I'm alive. Stick to your time limits. When you say 5 minutes, or 2 minutes, or whatever you say stop! We haven't finished. Well, you should have finished. But teacher. Okay, well, next time I say 2 minutes, try to work more quickly. Because unless they start to take your time limits seriously, game over, everything proves. Okay? Oscar Wilde said the best time to leave a party is when all the good-looking people leave. Yes. He said, when you're having the most fun. And it's actually the same in the classroom. As soon as the activity reaches the peak, the crescendo, the best bit, stop. Ah, but teacher, this is fun. Good, we'll do it again. If you let it slowly drift down, again, you're kind of killing the activity. It's much better to interrupt activity. It took me a long time to recognise that. You're much better off killing the activity when it's good than letting it go any longer, because it gets worse. Yeah? True or false? It's very difficult to stop something good, especially if the next activity is a difficult listening. But you know, it's our choice. It's always our choice. You can let the class drift, or you can try to promote your agenda. It's up to you. And once you start to interrupt, honestly, what happens is the students start to work more quickly. This teacher is serious. When she says 4 minutes, we have 4 minutes. So we better try to work. If it's a 2 minute, teacher, it's not going to happen. What I'd like you to do is just name the verb forms that you see. For example, what's that? Ride a bike. Just with the person next to you, just say a phrase which comes to mind for each image. Notice the process. What did I do as a teacher? Just press the button. Yeah? Who was talking? The students. Who did the work? Who got the money? Remember that, okay? But the whole point is the students are working through, and when I put the pictures, we forgot skateboard, we forgot whatever. And that to me is what you should be doing, manage the material. Open the book, look at the picture, close the book, remember. Open, close, open, close, open, close. Short activities. And get the students producing much, much more in short bursts of activity. You can get everybody talking like that. Okay? And then those pictures you can see are very, very old. That was actually the first PowerPoint I made about 14 years ago, I think. Where did the pictures come from? I was teaching in Spain. And I asked my students, could each of you choose one image of a verb that you want to learn in English? They were teenagers, okay? And each of them gave me an image. I put this onto a PowerPoint, and I've had it for 14 years, okay? And every time I introduce a new verb form, just go back to the pictures and they, oh, that's my picture, I remember that. And you will generate fluency because they know the verb forms. They chose the verb forms. So you're much better off as a teacher with something short and sweet and repeating the same thing rather than a photocopy, extra video. Because every time you try to introduce new structures with new vocabulary, it's often the vocabulary which causes the problem, not the structure. If it's known vocabulary, things which they chose, and you keep coming back each time to the same thing, the students will develop far more confidence and fluency. That's basically the grammatical syllabus for the first 2 years in terms of tenses for most programs. And my feeling is, instead of a photocopy or a grammar exercise, you're much better off playing with this and getting the students to try and produce that language. You can play in lots of ways. Look. There they are again. I'm going to ask you a question, so pay attention. Okay. In your pairs. Short enough to make it worthwhile. If I took a long time to, oh God, any minute now he's going to do this, then he's going to do this, we can look, if you keep it short. Lots and lots of little short twists. Open the book, close the book, remember, cover the text, remember, don't cheat, have a quick look, remember. Just that simple management of whatever material. All that speaking came from me pressing buttons. And you can do this with any text that you have. Number 4, elicitation. I have big problems with elicitation because the heartbeat of communicative language learning is elicitation. We don't tell, we ask. We don't deduct, we induct. My feeling is that favours a certain type of student. The quick, the strong, the lucky, the rich, normally. Yeah? Every time you ask a question, you get the same students answering the question. It's always, I know, oh, I know, teacher. Look at me, teacher. Yeah. And I call them Wikipedias. Every class has a Wikipedia or two. Yeah. Can you visualize your Wikipedia in your class? Do you know who they are? How do the rest of the students in your classes feel about Wikipedia? They hate her, don't they? Because she's stealing their opportunities. How does the pedagogy and the teacher appear to feel about Wikipedia? We love Wikipedia. Community language teaching loves Wikipedia. Because thank God somebody is answering the question. Imagine life without Wikipedia. You would feel very lonely.
I call them earthquakers.
Exactly. So how do we get rid of this? Because it's an issue in every class you teach. Some students will dominate. Let me show you how I do it. This is just a poem. It's my kid's favourite poem. And I'm going to, in your pairs, don't shout. If you shout, you're like Wikipedia. Okay? Just whisper what you think the next word or next phrase is going to be within this poem. Okay? So just as you see it build, just stay together and see what you can guess. was it? Raise your hand. Don't say leave. Do you know the end? Ah, good. Wikipedia is silenced. Democratic, because I'm not allowing Wikipedia to shout. I'm putting you in pairs, you're whispering. Some of you may use Turkish together, I don't care, you're whispering together. You're not destroying my class. You're helping each other as a group stay together on that particular day, moment. Yeah? And I haven't seen teachers doing this very often in their teaching. I would urge you to try to elicit like that. Very small quantities, the pair, or the trio if you wish, doesn't matter, as the main unit of work. Showing a little bit more and keeping them busy together. If you just read it through and ask questions, Wikipedia will answer. If you show too much, Wikipedia will dominate. If you just reveal your text a little bit at a time like that, the students are interested, and I think the activity is small enough, the level of challenge is appropriate for most students to wish to try to participate. Does that make sense? This afternoon we have a workshop, so I'll be free to take questions and we can work through all of these things if you want to. How do you equalise dominant students? It's difficult, isn't it? Because we need them to keep the class moving sometimes, but other times we hate them because we want the silent student to speak. How do you do it? To save time, I'll just give you my answers. Pair check. Whenever I ask a question, so what's the difference between this and that? Don't tell me, tell each other. You're much better asking a question and get the students to try to answer it than asking a question to the class and then Wikipedia will dominate proceedings. Do you see what I'm saying? So whenever you ask a question, set an activity, whatever, use the pair as the main unit of work, so that the students, everybody, democratically, has the opportunity to speak. If you wait for the hands to go up, it's always the same hands. And then you have to go into that embarrassing, it's your turn, could you speak? Ah, teacher, no. When you start to nominate, that becomes problematic, or you can terrify. Give more time, okay? Here's my question. Okay, everybody, think about the question, think about the question, think about the question. Okay. Now, who would like to answer? Because we're in such a hurry to cover our silly bus, what happens is that we try to work too quickly, and you feed the strong, and you pray for the rest. Get students to write the answer, obviously. When they're writing, that's more, I think, democratic. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3, everybody shout. Not just with Wikipedia. Just that little delay will get more hands up. When you're teaching in a hurry, you can't do that. Or if Wikipedia is female, just say, no more girls, could we have a boy? That's the one way I think is fair enough to suppress. If you have some more ideas, we'll talk about them this afternoon. They're the ones which I found. Okay? This is quite nice too. When you ask a question, it's always one arm goes up, isn't it? But why don't you have 2 arms? So a role for this arm, if you understand the activity, the question, and you wish, you show comprehension with your left arm. Okay? If you wish to answer, use the other arm. So this is comprehension. I understand, teacher, but I'm tired. Or I understand, teacher, but Wikipedia speaks better than me. Yeah? Or I understand, teacher, but today I'm going to try. By just giving them a choice, you're going to get a better range of responses. And if they have no hands up, it's not worth asking Wikipedia because the students haven't understood the question. And so you're in a better position to go back rather than keep charging, present perfect, future perfect, We're all perfect. Text, that crazy rush thing, which isn't going to teach anybody very much. Have you tried that? If it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back. Did you pay today? Thank God for that. Okay, good. All right, so how can you elicit some any words you want, you can elicit in the following way. There's some random words. Okay? How would you elicit them? This is how I would elicit from a song. This is by Bruno Mars. See if you recognise. Saturday night we're in the spot. Don't believe me, just. Good. Okay, that was Wikipedia was going, I didn't do this. I know the grammar. And a student who likes music goes, watch. Yeah. Well, this one, I'm gonna swing. Okay, and it's different voices calling out from the. Thank you. You can sound them like what? Yeah. Okay, that sort of thing. You and me could write a bad. For example, this is just examples, okay? But I use songs all the time because students, the students I've been teaching are exposed to a lot of English through music. And once you discover what they like, and this afternoon I'll show you lots more tricks with songs. But that sort of elicitation, I think, is fair because you're basing it not on ability to analyse, but perhaps existing knowledge, songs which they know. So try it in pairs. I'd like you to try it now in pairs. Just it could be a Turkish song or an English song, any song which you've got in your head. Just sing a line and then pause before an interesting word, and see if your partner can provide the word. Any song you like. Students in all sorts of ways. Going back to the board, going back to what I've done to you. Teaching is too challenge-response, too immediate. You know, hungry, McDonald's. You know, that's all. We're instant gratification. Life is getting faster now, as we know, and we're in a hurry. You know, problem, solution, it's all too quick. I think teaching should reflect better learning. If you, for example, just put this sort of thing on the board at the beginning of the class, as I showed you, just put something interesting on the board. And again, as I've shown you already, lots of examples, more this afternoon. For example, that. Just put that on the board and then teach your class. Ignore it, don't talk about it, just get on with the class. You know, do whatever you have to do for half the class. And then turn to this in the middle of the class and say, okay, what's your favourite toy? Tell your partner. Everybody will participate because they had 20 minutes to think about the question. If you go into class, good morning class, what's your favourite toy? Who's going to answer? Wikipedia. You know this is going to happen. You know? So it's up to us to feed everybody democratically by seeding. Get things into circulation, but don't address them. Because when you've got interesting questions on the board, the students start to think about things. When their heads go, I finished teacher, good, read the board, have a think. Engage students throughout the class with different things. Only questions on the board, it doesn't take long to write. And what you're doing is keeping them busy in English, whilst you do all the other things which you have to do as a teacher. Help students to keep up. This is critical, I think. I'm going to speak and I'm going to pause. And when I pause, I want you to tell me the next word that I'm going to say, okay? And you can do this with any number of students. It doesn't matter if you have 20 or 2,000 students. They will soon begin to participate by completing the words that you are saying. Okay? And I can get all of you speaking simply by pausing in the right place. And you can pause at any time, any class, and get students to complete what you are saying. Okay? Have you ever done that? Yes. It's fantastic. If you have, congratulations. If you haven't, happy Christmas. It's the best technique I know to get students talking. Okay? You can show them ing, so giving them visual clues halfway and stopping in the middle of any thing, yeah? And then completing the word yourself. They get the echo feedback of what they guessed. Try it. Try it with the person next to you. Talk about your journey here today. How did you get here this morning? And then pause in the middle. See if your partner can complete what you're saying. Piece of paper, and then line by line by line by line, getting students to read or reread or reread any text, unveiling line and getting them to predict what comes next. Don't do it with the whole class because Wikipedia will dominate. Just get them working in the smaller groups, and everybody democratically is involved. So what I'm trying to do is lots and lots of short pair work, getting students like I ping, you pong. To me, good teaching is ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, ping pong, and ping pong, ping pong, ping pong between the students. If your teaching is ping, ping, ping, ping, ping, and no pong, you're in trouble, okay? So try and keep it short. Try to avoid this, because this is what happens in most classes. Have you ever taught this woman? She's in every class that I teach. Oh yes, teacher. Yes. Very good. The minute you say, don't tell me, tell your partner, you get the feedback you need to teach the class. If you, without that feedback, that panic, how do you know what to do next? You can only discover what to do next when they actually look at each other and tell the truth. Little kids don't lie. If they're lost, they tell you. But older students, teenagers, can plastic smile all day just to get through the day. So it's basically, for me, that's the rudder of my teaching. When the students look at each other, I know what to do, I think, next. But Without that feedback, I'm just imposing on them an idealized lesson plan. And any lesson plan is a fantasy. Every lesson plan you've ever taught is a fantasy. Because you're dealing with people. When you're dealing with people, things happen. So you need to get that feedback within your plan to guide you where to go. And the myth about lesson planning is, how often have you been observed, and then the observer says to you, oh, but you didn't follow your plan. When do you change your lesson plan? You only ever change your lesson plan to make things better. You don't think, oh, this lesson's going really well. Yes, it's going really well. Let me make it worse. Yes. I'll follow my plan and make it worse. Rubbish. You only change things to make things better. And that's good teaching. So there are so many myths around our profession which stop us from actually teaching and enjoying the students together. Right. This is quite nice. When I pause, I'll just show you this very quickly. I'm going to pause, and when I pause, I want you to tell or to write down the last 5 words that I said. Okay? So I've been teaching for a long time, and it seems to me that a lot of the procedures we use were imported from one-to-one classes rather than were designed specifically for groups. Pause. The last word was groups. Before that?
Specifically.
More specifically. Before that? Design. What was before that? Rather than. Okay. Now what? That pause, you can keep it in your head. Some of you heard, but that's what you heard. When I say, what did you hear? You say, I heard rather than the groups. That's what they hear. And if you want to teach listening, you have to work with perception. So it's not the students say, I didn't understand. Of course you didn't understand. It was too quick. But what did you hear? Groups. Good, congratulations. That's what most people hear. That's how you have to work with listening, by pause, pause, pause, try to catch the last thing. Because humans have an echoic memory. You have this memory, you can catch about the last 10 syllables, and you can keep it in your head. So that's why the most important button on any audio machine is pause. Pause, what did you hear? Tell your partner. And that's when you get the feedback as a teacher. I never play a whole list. You play it once, again teacher, and you play it again. That's rubbish, waste of time. Play 10 seconds, pause. What did you understand? You're much better going back with a short bit than going on and then copying the exam by playing it twice. That's a testing procedure. It's not a teaching procedure. To teach, you need to pause, check, and then vote. You know, play 10 seconds, pause. What did you get? Not much. Okay, class, shall we go back? Or shall we go on? Wikipedia, go on, teacher, go on, I'm satisfied. And the rest of the students, no, teacher, go back. Let's vote, good, we'll go back. Big pong. That's good teaching. If you play the whole thing once, most students disconnect as soon as they stop understanding the significance of that. We'll look at that again this afternoon. So this thing is a phonological loop. And what I would urge you to do in the class is keep pausing and checking comprehension of the last bit. Because it echoes in the memory, you're going to get successful listening. The minute you have a long listening, it becomes a memory test, not a test of their ability to catch and reproduce things, which is a different skill. Okay, break activities up. So pausing in the middle of anything, I think is critical. Yeah? And if you say, I don't have time, as Nick said, then what are you doing with the audio? Which is more important, the process or the answers? We spend a lot of classroom time chasing answers, rather than thinking about the process. You can only work with process if you keep it small, so the students can verbalize their perception of the process. Again, this afternoon, I'll show you some more. You can do the same thing with a fairy story. We're running out of time, so what's the next word? Just whisper to the person. No, don't tell me, tell your partner. We don't have time. Even with the program you have, you could just 9:30 till and get the students to try and complete. Even with a very short text which you're wearing, you could turn that into an interactive activity. We don't have time to do it now. You can see the power of that interactive guessing. It's particularly good for revision when the students have read a story or a text or heard the story and are working with the audio because they've got some idea of what's coming. Tends to build confidence. Okay, these are the advantages of pausing. Again, Nick was using it very well in his presentation. The power of the pause is very, very good. To me, the key thing is this. Every time you pause, the students who are dreaming or melting in the summer in Gazze'deki, those students have a window to get back into the class. So by pause, pause, pause and check, you're helping students get back onto the train if they've already fallen off. If you keep rushing and then saying, now what's the answer, question, answer, etc., you're not going to achieve the same thing. And the best thing of all as a teacher is you can look at the class and work with reality, not some artificial dream called a lesson plan. Okay, I think we have to stop. I just want to go to the end because I asked you a question. Just bear with me because of the time. I haven't quite finished. There is here. I'll do this one because it's fun. Really trust pair work. Sorry. It's 2 minutes more. Really trust pair work. This afternoon I'll look in detail at how pair work should work. There's pair work for you. Make it your basic formula. Of course, do drama and do group work, but when it's group, use groups for significant activities. Use pair work for fast checking and above all democratizing the speaking process. That's the advantage. What's it going to say on your pedagogical headstone? Okay? Just imagine, what would you like it to say? When you die, I'm much nearer to death than most of you. What would it say on my headstone? It's going to say that. Don't tell me I'm dead. But that's how I've been teaching for 40 years. Don't tell me it's much more important that you tell each other. What would you like on your pedagogical headstone? She died with her chalk in her hand. Her present perfect was magnificent. That's what I would like. Somebody told me the other day, I'll be back. Oh, that was very good. All right. So that was the question I asked you at the beginning. We're finishing now. Yeah? What do you think? I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. I want you to shout individual or group. They're not equal. You need to make a choice. Is it the individual or is it the group? 1, 2, 3. Shout. Group. Good. If I had asked you that question at the beginning, I strongly believe half of you would have said individual. You see the way I'm working. It's the group, it's the group, it's the group, stupid. Just remember the group so that everybody can participate. If you keep feeding off individuals, the group will suffer. Okay? And that's what I've been trying to do, and that's what I'll do this afternoon in my work. The hardest thing in teaching is that. Balancing the needs of the individual with the group and maximising everybody's class time. That's, keep asking yourself, who's talking to who? Who's really listening? That's the dialogue you should have in your head as a good teacher. What's really happening in this class? And this is something which I learned 30 years ago, which changed my teaching. Just think about your quietest student in every class. How much of this are they getting? Not Wikipedia, The students are not speaking. Is it because they're quite happy and they're silent process? But that should be your guide as a teacher when you're working, to help you gauge the group correctly. Think about the weakest ones and work on ways to help them to contribute as equals. Okay, thank you very much for having me.
Listening to you. Now I'd like to invite our high school principal, Mrs. Mehtap Özdemir, to the stage to present a small gift that will remind all of us. On the -2 and first floor that are waiting for your participation. Nick Bilbrough in our own right, Paul Seligson becoming a more efficient classroom manager, Nick Mentay, the future of teaching is with coaching, Kostas Pexos incorporating blended learning to engage students. I also want to remind you that we're going to have the action and exploratory research poster presentations at 2:30, and it will be followed by the raffle, which I like the most, at Wordsworthy. And last but not least, don't forget to collect your certificates right here from the main conference hall at 3:30. And please don't hesitate to ask anything to our staff. We will be happy to help you. By the way, while you're eating the dinner, the floors are divided into two. I mean, you're going to eat your dinner in the lobby part or the upper floor. So it's up to you. Have a nice
The second one is
we're going to present the third system and the education system.
We're from GKV College, General IB program. Do you know what's IB? No, I
Most successful class.
IB is actually an education system that aims to develop students who are inquired, knowledgeable, and caring. And IB has 4 different programs. The first one is PYD for
When we change this strategy, for example, here it says we have the LRD strategy, but you like visual stories, so it's more attractive.
Yes, and more than 90% of schools, IB schools, concentrates on DP program, the diploma program, and only a handful offers YB and MYB. Because the diploma program is more international program.
By the way, this was done
Since we're 10th graders, we're now officially IB students, but from the beginning from the second semester. But in 9th grade and 10th grade's first semester, we were pre-IB students, and we took really comprehensive English lessons, and and we had literature.
In the literature, we focused on the eras, the historical eras, and the classic books. For example, Lord of Flies.
It is our first book in literature, and it is about a bunch of kids who stuck in an island by a plane crash. They were escaping from the World War I, and this novel is actually about this concept. Yes, we have.
These are our characters. If you want, you can take.
These are handmade.
They are all.
She's an expert on
So there should always be something in our minds.
Yes, and these are the characters of the book that we talked about, Lord of the Flies. Mine is Rolf. Rolf is the protagonist of the book, and he's like a charismatic one, athletic person, and he is the elected leader of the island. Since we said that they were escaping from the World War I, like we rate them with the IB learner profiles. He is a balanced and principled person because you know, the kids on the island were trying to have fun and like hunt and eating food. That was the only thing they were focusing on. But Ralph was a character, is a balanced and principled one. So he wanted to build a shelter, and he thought about the best way of rescuing. So he was the main character of the army.
Mine is Jack. He's the villain of the novel. After he loses the election of the leadership on the island to the Rock, he wants power back. And by wanting the power back, he punished the kids that did not support Jack. And from the beginning to the end, he wants desire for the power.
Piggy is the other type of the island. His physical traits are more like an older person. He's fat, he's nearsighted, his hair is thinning, and he has medical conditions such as asthma. And he represents intelligence and technology in novel, and especially with Golding focuses on his spectacles in the novel because his spectacles represent technology in the island. Because kids use these spectacles to fire, to make a fire. And as you all know, fire is the first thing that started civilization. And he represents intelligence because he is the source of the information that Ralph takes from it.
While searching, he goes alone. So this makes him he's representative of the spirit of
And if you want, we also have 10 different IB learning profiles.
And actually, I'm going to introduce the first one, reflective. Reflective students can pay attention to their own learnings and experiences, and they know evaluate and understand their own strengths and limitations to support their lifelong learning and personal development. And the second one is risk takers. IB learning profiles aim to develop students who are risk takers. It means guiding students to explore new ideas and innovative strategies and challenging their ways of thinking and encouraging them to be confident in those decisions.
The third one is communicator. Being communicator is important for the IB students because
third level, the fourth grade level. Our students are fourth grade, and we need this project on fourth grade students.
Great, we'll go
It's one of my favorites.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you. Yes, thank you. It's an opportunity. We're happy to be here. I mean, it's our first time.
Hello again,
so I have already
and welcome back.
For April.
At this stage of the conference, we would ask you to actually go and have a look at the posters which our colleagues have prepared, and we will start our raffle at 3 o'clock.
We went to Koçak, just a bit, but in April, she has a real